There's something dangerously powerful about a woman who can sit in silence and not feel lonely. She's not desperate for the noise of the crowd, nor does she need validation from the outside to confirm what God already whispered on the inside. A woman who chooses solitude over superficiality is not empty. She's full of vision, full of strength, full of discernment, full of purpose. Others are chasing popularity. She's chasing presence. While others are scrolling, she's studying. While others are dancing for attention, she's marching in alignment. This is not a woman who breaks down every time someone walks away. She builds when others leave. Her alone time is her training ground. Her wilderness is her classroom. Her silence is her sanctuary. You see, when a woman withdraws, she's not running away. She's gathering her thoughts, gathering her strength, gathering her anointing. When she disappears for a season, don't assume defeat. She's not lost, she's loading. When she's silent, don't mistake it for submission to circumstance. It's submission to something higher. She knows her source. She knows her God. And because she knows him, she knows herself. When life tried to bury her, she didn't suffocate. She germinated. You thought it was over, but God was doing an inside job, refining her, defining her. She doesn't rise with bitterness. She rises with clarity. A woman who spends time alone is not just protecting her peace, she's perfecting her power. She doesn't need attention, she commands it. Not with volume, with value. Not with noise, but with notice. She walks into a room and doesn't need to be announced. Her presence is the proclamation. She doesn't compete, she completes. She's too busy becoming to beg, too focused on destiny to chase validation. She's a threat to dysfunction. Mirror to mediocrity, a challenger to chaos. She doesn't fold under pressure, she forms under it. She's the kind of woman who prays when others panic, who plans when others pause, who walks by faith while others wait for applause. And when she emerges from her time alone, don't expect the same woman you once knew. She will be wiser, stronger, quieter, yes, but with a voice that shakes foundations. Woman who spends time alone isn't hiding, she's healing. She's building. She's becoming. She's dangerous because she's done pretending. Solitude is not a sign of weakness. It is not a scarlet letter that screams isolation or abandonment. It is not the space of the unloved or the forgotten. Solitude is strength in its purest form. It is the sacred chamber where transformation takes place, where identity is reforged, and where calling is clarified. The world may look at a woman who is often alone and label her lonely, but they don't know she's actually in the presence of her maker. She's not detached, she's being developed. She's not lost, she's listening. She's not weak, she's being weaponized by the wisdom of heaven. The strength of solitude lies in the stillness where chaos is muted, in a world that thrives on noise, where attention is currency and distraction is the norm. To choose solitude is a radical act of rebellion. It is a decision to pull away from the frenzy and get face to face with what matters. When a woman steps back from the crowd, from the validation, from the pressure to perform, she is not shrinking. She is stretching internally. She is growing invisible muscles. She is being fortified on the inside. Solitude is where she learns to breathe again, to center herself, to hear the voice that is not demanding but divine. The woman who spends time alone is not avoiding the world. She's learning how to move in it with authority. She's not seeking to disappear, she's being distinguished. Her strength is not measured by how loud she is in a room, but by how grounded she is when no one is clapping, no one is calling, and no one is watching. The strength in solitude is that it allows a woman to disconnect from the illusions that the world feeds her about who she should be and reconnect to the original blueprint of who she was created to be. She's not lonely. She's learning how to regulate her emotions, learning how to pray deeper, learning how to hear from God with no filter, learning how to look in the mirror and love what she sees, not because of perfection, but because of progress. There is power in being alone, because it is there that the masks fall off, the performance stops, and the healing begins. The true self steps forward, not the version created to survive, the version designed to thrive. In solitude, she is able to pull out the weeds of insecurity. She faces the wounds that were too loud to hear in the crowd. She lets the tears fall without needing to explain them. She opens her heart to divine inspection and lets the Spirit do surgery. Alone doesn't mean abandoned. It means attended to by God Himself. Some things can only be healed in the quiet. Some revelations can only come in the absence of applause. Some breakthroughs are reserved for the private place. The woman who embraces solitude is dangerous because she has been with herself and survived it. She has faced the storm inside and found peace. She has sat in the silence and made peace with her past. She has mourned what she lost and still decided to move forward. That kind of strength doesn't come from being surrounded. It comes from being separated. Every separation is punishment. Sometimes it is preparation. God pulls people away from you to pull you closer to Him. He allows the silence not to scare you, to strip you of the lies, the labels, the pressure, the performance. When a woman learns to be okay by herself, she becomes unshakable. She stops tolerating mistreatment just to feel included. She stops shrinking to fit rooms that can't hold her capacity. She stops begging for access because she understands she carries value. Solitude taught her how to be alone without feeling empty. It showed her that she is never truly alone because the presence of God is not found in the crowd, but in the secret place, the closet, the prayer room, the journal, the moments where it's just her, the stillness, and the Spirit of the living God. And while others waste energy chasing people, she chases purpose. While others exhaust themselves pleasing everyone, she pleases the one who formed her. While others rely on likes, comments, and praise to feel seen, she rests in the assurance that heaven already sees her. That's a dangerous woman. That's a woman who doesn't panic when people leave. That's a woman who doesn't crumble when seasons shift. That's a woman who doesn't collapse when critics speak, because she knows the truth about herself, because she found it in solitude. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes strength whispers. Sometimes strength sits. Sometimes strength is quiet obedience when no one is watching. Solitude teaches her how to walk with integrity, to build when no one's clapping, to stay faithful when nothing's changing. It shapes her into a woman who can carry weight without making noise, who can endure suffering without seeking pity, who can pray in pain and still praise in private. She doesn't need a crowd to feel confident. She found confidence in the cave. This woman is forged like steel in the furnace of solitude. You don't see the process, but you will see the results. When she comes out of hiding, she will not be the same. She will speak and shift atmospheres. She will walk into rooms and carry peace like a weapon. She will not be moved by flattery or offended by rejection. She has been through too much in silence to be shaken by shallow words. She doesn't perform anymore. She embodies. She doesn't chase anymore. She attracts. She doesn't impress anymore. She impacts. That's the strength of solitude. It's not flashy, but it is foundational. It's not glamorous, but it's glorious. It's not celebrated by many. It is honored by heaven. God meets her there, builds her there, transforms her there, and when the time comes, sends her from there. Not as she was, as He's made her. There comes a time in every life where the crowd fades, the applause silences, the friendships thin out. All you're left with is stillness, emptiness, perhaps, or so it seems. But let me tell you something: that stillness is not empty. That silence is not meaningless. That isolation is not punishment. No, isolation is preparation, and it is in that sacred separation that revelation is born. You don't find your identity in the noise. You don't discover destiny while distracted. You don't hear divine instructions while clinging to comfort. It is in isolation that clarity comes, that identity is reshaped, that heaven downloads wisdom, and God whispers the blueprint for the next level. Everything is stripped away, and all that remains is you and God. What's real is revealed, and what's not burns away. There's a birthing that happens in isolation, but not like the world births. This is not the birthing of ambition. It is the birthing of vision. This is not the manufacturing of image. It's the revelation of truth. And the truth is this: you can't walk in power until you've sat in stillness. You can't lead in public until you've been developed in private. You can't carry a mantle if you've never been crushed in the quiet. The wilderness is where prophets are formed. The cave is where kings are refined. The prison is where purpose is proven. And the desert, yes, the dry, dusty, lonely desert is where God speaks without interruption. He draws you away, not to destroy you, but to distinguish you. He separates not to break you, to build you. He hides you to hone you. Because when revelation is ready to come forth, it does not shout, it whispers. And you cannot hear a whisper if your ears are tuned to the applause of the world. When you feel alone, I challenge you to love enough and care enough, because people left. It's because God is pulling you inward. It's not that you're abandoned. It's that you're being awakened. And awakening often requires everything else to fall silent. Why? Because some revelations are too sacred to be shouted in crowds. They are too holy to be heard through static. They can only be delivered in the stillness when your soul is quiet enough to listen and your heart is raw enough to receive. There are things you will never see until you're alone. People may walk with you through celebration, but only God walks with you through consecration. People will cheer your eyes, but only the Holy Spirit will steward your breaking. And in that breaking, truth is birthed. In that separation, new sight is given. In that isolation, something is revealed that can't be found in books or sermons or conferences, only in solitude. It was in the backside of the mountain where Moses encountered the burning bush, alone. It was in the belly of the whale where Jonah was corrected and commissioned, alone. It was in the prison where Joseph's dreams matured and his character was proven, alone. And it was in the wilderness where Jesus, yes, Jesus himself was tested, strengthened, and prepared for public ministry. He was not surrounded. He was isolated. From that isolation came unstoppable revelation. See, isolation doesn't only test what's around you. It tests what's within you. It shows you what's real about you. It exposes what you're carrying. It reveals whether your confidence was in the crowd or in the Christ, whether your joy came from affirmation or from intimacy, whether your vision was hype-driven or heaven-given. There is a breaking that takes place in isolation, painful, purifying breaking, the kind that rips away false identities and man-made expectations, the kind that dismantles performance and demands authenticity. It hurts, but it heals. It shakes, but it shifts. It crushes, but it also creates. Because God cannot reveal what he has not first refined. You can't carry glory and cling to comfort. You can't be set apart and still chase being included. You can't walk in revelation and still crave relevance. So God, in his mercy, will draw you away, not to punish you, but to purify you. He removes the audience so your motives are exposed. He closes the doors so your character can be developed. He silences the noise so the sound of your spirit can be heard again. And when you endure that season, when you stay, when you wait, when you lean in instead of running away, you'll discover what many never do. That in the silence, God is still speaking. In the absence, he's still present. In the solitude, he is more near than you ever imagined. He wasn't avoiding you. He was inviting you into the inner sanctuary where deep calls to deep, where burdens are lifted, where blind eyes are opened, where identity is revealed and assignments are released. Revelation changes you. It's not just insight, it's insight that transforms. And transformation is too powerful to be casual. It's too sacred to be rushed. It must be birth. Birth requires labor, pain, patience, isolation. So if you're in a season where you feel alone, don't despise it. Don't rush it. Don't try to fill it with noise and distraction. Sit in it. Surrender to it. Let it do its work. Because what God is doing in the isolation is preparing you for what's coming in the elevation. The revelation you receive in private will sustain you in public. The truth he whispers in the shadows will guide you in the spotlight. The power he deposits in your secret place will uphold you in your open place. But none of that comes without separation. None of that comes without being still, being hidden, being alone. That's why isolation births revelation, because it empties you of the unnecessary so you can be filled with the undeniable. It silences the world so you can hear heaven. It removes the mirrors so you can see your maker. It detaches you from everything that's artificial so you can connect with everything that's authentic. When that happens, when you rise from that isolation carrying a word from the throne room of vision from eternity, fire that was not man-made, you will walk in a way that shakes hell and brings heaven to earth. Because you're not just walking with knowledge. You're walking with revelation, so embrace the isolation. Let it birth in you something sacred, something eternal, something unstoppable. You may be hidden now. What's forming in the dark will shine like the sun in the right time. She's not loud. She doesn't need to raise her voice to raise the standard. She's not everywhere, but her presence is undeniable. She doesn't demand attention. She commands it simply by walking in alignment. There's something different about her. It's not the way she dresses. It's not the way she talks. It's not her popularity or her position. It's the oil on her life. It's the fire in her belly. It's the stillness in her spirit and the storm in her walk. She is not easily moved. She is not easily broken. She is not easily impressed because she didn't come to fit in. She came to shake foundations. She is a threat to everything that pretends to be strong but is secretly fragile. She is a danger to systems built on dysfunction. She rattles cages just by breathing. She walks into rooms where chaos used to reign and suddenly everything feels unsettled. Not because she caused confusion, because she carried order. She's not confrontational, but her life confronts. She's not aggressive, but her peace exposes the unrest in others. Her discipline makes comfort uncomfortable. Her integrity makes compromise feel convicted. She doesn't come with noise. She comes with weight. And when she walks, everything that isn't rooted starts to shake. She's a threat to chaos because she carries clarity. She's a threat to confusion because she walks in truth. She's a threat to disorder because her life is built on divine alignment. And let me tell you something. Hell doesn't attack what it isn't afraid of. So if she's been under fire, it's because the enemy saw what she was about to expose. If she's been isolated, it's because her presence disrupts the patterns that keep others bound. She's not just a person. She's a breaker. She breaks cycles. She breaks dysfunction. She breaks traditions that have kept people tied to trauma. People don't always know what to do with her. She doesn't follow the script. She's not easily manipulated. She's not moved by trends. She's not addicted to approval. She has learned how to walk alone without losing her voice. She's learned how to love without losing herself. She's learned how to wait without growing bitter. And that strength, it didn't come cheap. That oil, it was crushed from experience. That fire, it was lit in the middle of her pain. She didn't just wake up strong, she chose to become it. She rose when others stayed down. She forgave when it made more sense to get revenge. She built when no one supported her. And now, she's dangerous. She's dangerous because she doesn't need the room to make her feel big. She already knows who she is. She's dangerous because she's no longer seeking permission to take up space. She's dangerous because she's not chasing opportunities. She's cultivating herself to be ready when they come. Comfort zones are afraid of her because she exposes how small they truly are. The status quo is terrified of her because she is the manifestation of what happens when purpose wakes up and refuses to go back to sleep. Her presence pulls people out of complacency. She doesn't even have to say a word. Just the way she carries herself challenges others to rise, to think higher, dream deeper, to heal, to grow, to let go of things that no longer serve their future. Her life is a living rebuke to laziness. Her pursuit of excellence makes mediocrity nervous. She's not trying to make everyone like her. She's trying to make everyone live. And not just breathe, live on purpose. She is a mirror, and when people look at her, they see what they've ignored. Her presence reveals the places people have settled. Her words, even when soft, are like a hammer in the spirit. She doesn't speak to impress. She speaks to impact. She speaks from wounds that have healed. She pours from a cup that's been refilled in the secret place. She doesn't come from ego. She comes from encounters. Encounters with God that changed how she sees herself. Encounters that taught her how to war in prayer. Encounters that taught her how to get low before God so she could rise in the presence of man. Comfort zones crumble around her because she lives a life of stretching. She doesn't believe in stagnation. She doesn't settle for good enough. She pushes herself not because she's striving, but because she's called. She's not chasing perfection. She's chasing obedience. She knows that settling would be easier, but she's not built for ease. She's built for purpose. She's built for nations. She's built for impact. So no, she's not going to make it easy for you to stay the same. Enough. She's not going to watch you self-sabotage and say nothing. She's not going to clap for your comfort when she knows there's a lion in you waiting to roar. Chaos, it can't rest near her because she doesn't operate from emotional instability. She operates from spiritual authority. She doesn't need to argue. She doesn't need to explain. She discerns. She sees beyond the surface. She speaks what others are too afraid to say, not because she wants to offend, but because truth is offensive to those who are bound by lies. She knows how to war in the spirit and walk in wisdom at the same time. She doesn't need to curse the storm. She commands it. She doesn't panic when plans shift. She pivots. She's not predictable. She's prophetic, and that's why the enemy hates her. That's why people try to label her, contain her, tame her. But she was never meant to be tamed. She was meant to transform. She is salt. She is light. She is oil and fire. She is a force sent to disturb everything that's been sleeping in the souls of others. When she opens her mouth, dry bones rattle. When she prays, hell trembles. When she moves, atmospheres change. She's a threat, yes, but not because she's arrogant, not because she's rebellious. She's a threat because she's free, and free women are always a threat to systems that were built to keep people bound. So if you see her, don't mistake her silence for passivity. Don't confuse her stillness for stagnation. Don't let her humility fool you into thinking she's harmless. Because behind that quiet confidence is a woman who has walked through fire, conquered demons, buried old versions of herself, and still came out worshiping. They misread her. Over and over again, they misread her because she didn't clap back, because she didn't post her pain, because she didn't air her wounds for attention or argue with people who couldn't handle her wisdom. They assumed her silence was weakness. They mistook her stillness for surrender. But what they didn't realize was silence is her strategy. She doesn't need to speak to be powerful. She doesn't need to be seen to be effective. She doesn't need to fight every battle to prove that she's won the war, because she's learned that not every room deserves her voice. Not every battle deserves her energy. Not every conflict deserves her presence. Her silence is not a void. It's a weapon. It's not an absence. It's an atmosphere. It speaks in dimensions words could never reach. They don't understand that while others are busy making noise, she's building. While others are shouting for attention, she's aligning with purpose. While others are clashing for position, she's cultivating inner power. Her silence is not her defeat, it's her decision. A decision to listen more than she speaks. To hear what God is whispering when others are too distracted by the noise. To pause, not because she's passive, but because she's precise. She's dangerous because she knows how to hold her peace. She doesn't explode, she executes. She doesn't panic, she plans. She doesn't react, she rises. Because silence, when yielded by a woman of depth, becomes a divine strategy. It protects her from premature exposure. It shields her from being misunderstood by those who only see the surface. It keeps her focused when others are losing themselves in performance. She doesn't tell everyone what she's building. She doesn't explain every move. She doesn't broadcast her every breakthrough. She's learned that elevation is quiet, that healing is quiet, that becoming is quiet. The most powerful parts of her journey don't show up on platform, they show up in the private places. When she's on her knees, when she's crying behind closed doors, when she's reading, fasting, studying, worshiping. That's where the strategy is formed. That's where the next version of her is being carved out. Her silence is sacred. It is intentional. It is prophetic. Because she knows how to wait, how to move in stealth, how to protect her progress from premature criticism. Her vision doesn't need to be loud to be legitimate. Her call doesn't need confirmation from the crowd. She doesn't wait for applause to begin the assignment. She doesn't need validation to obey God. When he says move, she moves. When he says wait, she waits. And when he says speak, she speaks with fire. She's been through enough to know that noise is often a distraction. The enemy loves to bait powerful women into pointless debates, to get her to open her mouth when she should be opening her ears, to get her to react in emotion rather than respond in discernment. But she's grown. She's evolved. She's learned that silence is not silence, it's strategy. They see her sitting quietly and think she's shrinking. She's studying the battlefield. She's watching the patterns. She's observing the shifts. She's listening for divine instructions. When she moves, it's never random. When she speaks, it's never careless. When she acts, it's always rooted in something deeper, something weighty. The natural eye cannot detect. Her silence holds power because it holds her process. It carries her healing. It carries her boundaries, carries her prayers. While others fight to be seen, she fights to be whole. While others race to be known, she hides herself in the secret place. She doesn't fear being overlooked because she knows God never misses a woman who's aligned with his heart. And when the time is right, when the time is right, she will speak. And when she does, chains will break. When she does, direction will come. When she does, what was unclear will snap into focus. Because her silence wasn't empty. It was gathering fire. It was growing power. It was storing revelation. And when she releases it, it will shift atmospheres. She's the kind of woman who doesn't waste words. She doesn't talk to impress. She talks to impart. She doesn't speak to be heard. She speaks to be understood. And when her voice comes forth, it doesn't entertain. It equips. She speaks from the oil that was crushed in the dark seasons. She speaks from the wisdom that came through suffering. She speaks from the spirit, not the ego. And that makes her voice weighty. Her words carry presence. You may never see her coming. She won't announce herself. She won't throw her title in your face. She won't boast about her calling, but her fruit speaks. Her peace speaks. Her consistency speaks. Her silence speaks louder than most people's noise. When others doubted her, she didn't argue, she kept building. When doors closed, she didn't complain, she kept praying. When betrayal hit, she didn't broadcast, she healed in silence. When she was overlooked, she didn't force her way in. She let God prepare the table. And now she's walking in rooms they said she'd never enter. Speaking into lives they said she'd never impact. Doing what they said she'd never do. Not because she screamed her way there, but because she stewarded her silence. She is not intimidated by delay. She doesn't panic when it gets quiet. She thrives in the pause. She hears God in the silence. She gathers strategy when others are chasing spotlight. She's too seasoned to be rushed, too refined to be rattled, too deep to be distracted. So if you see her and she hasn't said much lately, don't assume she's idle. She's listening. She's waiting. She's watching. And she's ready to move in precision, ready to speak with power, ready to shift what others couldn't even touch, because her silence wasn't passive. It was prophetic. She went in hidden. She went in wounded. She went in weary from the war, tired of pretending, broken in places no one could see. She wasn't the loudest. She wasn't the boldest. She wasn't always noticed or celebrated. But while the world overlooked her, heaven was working on her. While people misread her silence, God was rewriting her story. While the enemy thought he buried her in disappointment and defeat, he didn't know she was planted, not buried. And now she emerges, but not as the woman who walked in. She emerges transformed and empowered. You cannot defeat a woman who met God in the dark. You cannot intimidate a woman who died to the opinions of people. You cannot manipulate a woman who found her identity in the fire and not in flattery. She emerges not because the pain disappeared, but because she was refined by it. Not because the process was easy, but because she stayed in it. Not because she never cried, because she learned how to cry without collapsing. And now she stands, not fragile, not fearful, but fully formed. They thought she'd stay broken and care enough. They thought she'd give up. They thought the loss would paralyze her, that the betrayal would steal her voice, that the disappointment would drain her faith. She dug her heels into the ground of grace. She dared to believe in restoration. She allowed God to rewire her patterns and recalibrate her pace. Because of that, she did not emerge as a victim of her circumstances, but as a vessel of power. She emerges with wisdom that can't be Googled, with oil that can't be borrowed, with fire that can't be faked. Her voice isn't just sound, it's strength. Her walk isn't just movement, it's mission. Her life isn't just a story, it's a strategy from heaven. She is not who she used to be. That version of her, the insecure one, the doubting one, the silent one, was buried in the ashes of her process. What rose in her place is a woman of clarity, courage, and divine calling. She emerges not looking for validation, but carrying revelation. She no longer asks, "Do they like me?" She asks, "Am I walking in alignment?" She no longer fears rejection. She recognizes redirection. She doesn't run from the fire anymore. She walks through it with authority because she knows now that fire doesn't destroy the called, it purifies them. She emerges with eyes that see differently, ears tuned to the whispers of God, with hands that build, not beg, with feet that walk in peace, not pressure. She doesn't need to be loud. Presence speaks, her consistency speaks, her posture speaks. She doesn't walk with ego, she walks with evidence. Because transformation leaves marks, empowerment leaves fruit. You don't have to guess if she's changed. You'll know. She emerges with a healed heart, not just bandaged, mended by the master. Her scars tell stories not of shame, but of survival. She's not ashamed of her past anymore. She carries it